Obviously, in preparation for an elite team who I think is playing as well as any Big Ten team, certainly in our short tenure here that I've seen. It's a credit to Tom and his staff and his players. They're old. They're obviously extremely well coached. Play exceptionally hard and physical, and as I said, have been impressive as any team that I've seen in my short time here. I think when you look at their statistical numbers right now, they're top 5, top 3, 4 in pretty much every category that's out there. Ken Palm, they're top 4. Effective field goal percentage. They're elite defensively and offensively, top 3. Their offensive efficiency is top 5. Their defensive efficiency is top 15. And I think that's obviously a byproduct of having really good players, a really good coach, a great system, and then also being much older than they were this time last year with so many veteran guys. So it's a great challenge for us. We'll need to be at our very, very best.
Chris, I think they lead the country in assist percentage, among other things, like you just said. What's the difficulty? What kind of strain does it put on your defense when a team shares the ball the way that they do?
Well, I think it's a lot of that is a byproduct of having guys that have been in their rotation, that have played with great experience and played in big games and competed at a high level. They've got a great understanding of what they're trying to do offensively and defensively right now. I mean, more so than maybe even they did when we played them this time last year because of the experience that's on their roster. And you see that in how they play. But they're a really unselfish group, really unselfish.
What do you think this game might tell you about your team?
Well, I think we'll obviously learn a lot, but I really feel like we're going to learn a lot here in these next 2 to 3, 4 weeks. I don't know if one game ever certainly doesn't define you, and it doesn't always give you, I don't know if you can draw conclusions based on just one game. So I really think that we'll learn a lot more in these next 2, 3, 4 weeks about our group. We'll certainly, we're playing as good a team as there is in the country. There's no question we're playing as good a team as there is in the country. There's no question in my mind. So that in and of itself tells you a lot about your team.
And were there specific things in this last month where you've had, I think, 4 or 5 games that you've been able to work on, things that I don't know, maybe specific things that you hope to start seeing some dividends as soon as tomorrow?
Sure. I think you're always trying to evaluate what you're doing poorly as a team and trying to get better in those areas. Certainly our turnover percentage is something that's been a consistent issue for us. So I think that our rebounding, which can certainly get exposed against a team like Michigan State. Those are 2 areas that we've talked about. And then honestly, we try to spend a lot of time trying to learn more about our team because, we're still learning about our team as a coaching staff and learning, what combinations work, learning where we might want to go with the ball late in certain situations. So you try to simulate some of that in practice.
Crunch some of the numbers in this 6-game winning streak. I think you're shooting 40% in the first half and 50% in the second half, almost dead even in scoring against your opponents in the first half, plus 50 in the second half, something like that. Can you afford to sustain that going forward and fall behind people and go those 5-minute stretches in games like this one and still win games in the Big Ten?
No, I hopefully you eliminate some of those extended stretches. I think we had a game both in the Youngstown State game and the High Point first half against UCLA where we had stretches of just poor play and scoring droughts and not always effective defense. Having said that, I don't know that we're the kind of team right now that's going to steamroll a team in the first half. I don't know that that's who we are right now. I think it's going to be a little bit more at times a slow drip, and I think that's the nature of our team. Having said that, we've got to do a better job as coaches and players of eliminating some of the extended runs that we've had. Teams have had against us, and we have to do a better job of eliminating some of those scoring droughts. I do think we're going to have some scoring droughts that we're going to have to manage. I think that's going to happen with this group.
The calendar year of 2018, from a year ago today to the present, I think you're 26-6, something like that, which would be good enough for like a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Just how do you sustain and continue on this plane that you're on? 3 of the losses were to one team last year, Penn State. Just how do you,
I know who the team is. Thank you, Steve.
How do you continue this level of success and continue trending this direction going forward, kind of going into some heavy sledding here?
Yeah, I think realistically, when you take a look at our schedule, first of all, I think everybody would admit while I think the league last year was better than it got credit for, you see that Penn State team that won the NIT. You win the NIT championship, you can win a game or two in the NCAA tournament. There's no question. That team was really, really good and really talented. And so while I think the league was good, better than people thought, we probably benefited with some programs being in maybe a little bit of a transition last year, to be quite honest with you. So I don't think those numbers are realistic. We're not at that. We're just, as a program, we're not quite there yet to where we can expect those kind of numbers to be consistent numbers. We're not there yet as a program, much less in a league that is arguably the best league in the country right now. So I don't think those numbers are realistic for this group and for this team. Given this year and given the quality of teams in this league, when you look at it, I mean it is, if not the best, it's one of the very best in the country. And then the reality is too, our non-conference schedule, while it on paper it did look good, there probably have been some teams that maybe have not quite performed what we anticipated. So. Like I said, we don't know what we are yet necessarily as a group, and we'll know a whole lot more in a month. But we certainly have a lot to prove.
You could probably look at Michigan State film like 20 years ago, and they're like old school, aren't they? In that they're really physical and athletic.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody who does that anymore.
Yeah, it is a little bit of, yeah. I mean, he's proven that he can do it over and over and over, and I think the mark of some of maybe Izzo's genius is his consistency. And I say that with great respect. I mean, it is amazing how consistently they perform year in and year out. And we know how hard that is to do at an elite level. I mean, it's every year they're top 5, top 10. And I think they play a style that is a little bit of a throwback, maybe in today's game. But when you've had the success that he's had, why would you go away from it? There's been some tweaks, I'm sure, but the physicality they play with. The length and size that they play with is a bit of a throwback.
You've recruited some guys like Ladie and Wesson and all that. Are you going to try to be more physical through the years?
Are you questioning our physicality right now?
No. I'm just trying. This is your second year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So
you.
you're
Yeah.
trying to load the truck.
Yeah, I would say it's an interesting question. I do like size and length, and who doesn't, right? And I think, Tom at times will play with two more traditional bigs, which I think is kind of what you're getting at there with some more traditional bigs. And me personally, I would like to be able to have a lineup that can go both ways, where you can, Cato was a great example of the versatility that you like to have kind of on the front line, where you can match up with some people and be incredibly skilled, and you can match up with other people and be big and long and physical. So I think we'd like to be able to have flexibility on a roster with both.
You were talking about Ohio State. You were talking about how consistency and year-to-year consistency is the one thing that you don't have right now. I mean, you've only been here for a year and a half, but Michigan State, that is what they have. And you were successful last year, and you guys have only had one loss this year. What do you need to take? What steps do you need to take to get to that level of program consistency?
You have to recruit really well, kind of year after year after year, and I think you're the young people that you bring in your program kind of have to understand how you want to play and be really committed to playing that particular way. You see that in elite programs where their recruiting matches how they want to play and matches their system, and then there's great belief in how that system is going to play out. And I think that's the only answer. And we obviously have had a couple recruiting classes here, but we've just got to keep growing and building on that end to be able to establish, a consistent level. And we're not there yet. We're not, but hopefully we can get there.
Are there any programs that you tried to model yourself after when you were coming up as a young coach?
Yeah, I've told people before that there were a lot of programs and a lot of coaches that I admired. Tom was certainly one of them, where I think I always appreciated kind of watching his teams and learning how his teams played and the way in which they played. And then I always appreciated how the competitive spirit of his team, and then how coachable his group was. I've got great appreciation for that. You can tell he coaches them hard, and they embrace that aspect.
You rattled off a bunch of numbers earlier, and I know you've done that for a few other teams this year. When you were looking at them, was there one number that jumped out to you among all the others?
I think I just was really impressed with how consistent there's not a whole lot of, and you see that with the top 5 team. There's not a whole lot of glaring weaknesses where you can say, wow, they're bottom 50 or 50 and above in this certain, there's not. They're really efficient on offense. They're really hard to score on when you're trying to score on them. They protect the rim. They guard the three-point line. They do all the things that really good teams do. So I don't know if there's one in particular. I wish I could tell you right now, hey, they stink in this area, but they don't. They don't. They're pretty much good in every area.
Chris, I'm still kind of surprised to hear you say you're not there as a program yet, when the numbers, at least to your mind, superficially suggest you are. What is the advantage of that sort of realistic approach as a coach and program?
I think we're trying to. I think that's honestly how I see it right now. Michigan State's played. They have played a much harder non-conference and schedule than we have. And some of it is a general statement, kind of overall about our program, knowing, hey, we're not quite there yet. hopefully we can get there, but we're not quite there yet. And some of it is also, I think this team right now is not quite there yet. And you can take, video from our games and see that recent games where we've got a ways to go. So I think our guys hopefully have an understanding of that. And, I've talked a number of times about how kind of unrealistic and irrelevant some of the ranking and that kind of stuff is. Our guys understand that we've got a long ways to go.
Before some of these previous games where the opponent didn't have name recognition or anything like that,
Yeah.
you had talked about how it would be a good test for your leadership. Is a game like this a better test of leadership than maybe a lesser recognized opponent, or is there something to be said for getting through that part of the schedule where the opponent didn't generate the electricity that some of these Big Ten teams will?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think we're going to get tested in those moments in the game where it's 5 minutes to go. And I'm not saying who knows if it's going to be this game, but in this stretch, 5 minutes to go, it's a 1 or 2 possession game. You've had some plays not go your way. How do you respond in those minutes? What's your leadership like? And then over the course of the conference season, what I'm looking for is what is your leadership like when you go through some of the peaks and valleys that teams go through in league play. And you see it all the time, and we hear it over and over from our perspective, even as the league play has started in leagues across the country. You hear just the frustrations that happen within groups, and I think how you manage that really says a lot about what your season's going to look like.
I just wanted to ask you quickly about how you feel about your interior defense, guys like Caleb and Kyle, when they're going to throw, Nick Ward at you and Tillman.
It's a big concern for us. It's a big concern for us, given we're not as big as we've maybe been. We're not as long as what we were last year, and we're not quite as physical. When you lose a guy like JT, who was maybe not an interior guy, but he brought a physicality on the glass. So it's a concern because of how much they post the ball. And as you were mentioning earlier, they're a team that likes to post it really as much as any team in the country. We like to post it as well. But it's going to be a tremendous challenge for us. And that in the pace, listen, I don't know that I've seen, and I can't remember in recent time, a more impressive performance than what I watched the other day against a really good Northwestern team. That you look at Northwestern and who they've almost beaten, super impressive. I don't know if I've seen a more impressive performance than that, which even increases my respect for them more.
When you guys played them last year, Kyle hadn't played a lot leading into that game, but he played more minutes than we had been seeing from him. How much more prepared is Kyle for a game like this or a situation like this, like Bill's asking about your interior defense, than maybe he was a year ago?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I've got a lot of confidence in Kyle, but he has to play at the level that we know he's capable of in terms of being active, being aggressive, flying around on both ends, and being a live body, which he is. That's what he has to be for us, and it's going to be a great test for a lot of our new guys. The interesting thing with last year's team and game is we did have a few more guys that had been in these kind of moments last year that had just kind of played through with JT and Kate and Cam, those three guys in particular, and even Dokic, although he was watching more of those games than he was playing, but he'd been a part of them. But those three guys had really been a part of them, and I'm going to be interested to see how our guys respond that are, in that game for the first time, or like Kyle, in increased roles in that kind of a game. And all of our guys, really, outside of maybe CJ and Caleb, are really in increased roles in these types of games as we move forward to league play. Okay, thanks, guys.